Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. In last month's Patreon video, I introduced my new series, Brave New World 2020 to you. If you have never read the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, you need to. Not just because it will help you to understand what I'm talking about in these next several months worth of videos, but because it is a good book and it really gives you a good glimpse into what could possibly be happening in our future. So there are 4 specific areas of Brave New World that I can really specifically see school being the catalyst for, and that is the purpose of this series. So my first segment is on factory-raised children. So just for a brief overview of Brave New World, I'm not going to give a summary of the entire book, just the one that is pertinent to today's video. But in the book Brave New World, children are not raised by parents. There is no such thing as the family. There is no such thing as natural affections. People are raised in factories. They are actually bred in a scientific lab, and then they are reared with just a scientific upbringing, and there is no mention of mother, father, sister, brother, anything of that matter. So I know that some of you might be wondering, why is it that I seem to link school to all of these things that are going on in the world and all of the downfalls of society? And you have to look at it this way. School really is the centerpiece for our culture. The state of our schools in the present time, in any present time, will give you a very good glimpse of the very near future, or unfortunately, of what the present in outside society, outside of school, looks like at that given time. Children are placed in schools in their most formative years, the time when they are absorbing everything around them. They are absorbing people's point of views. They are absorbing just how other people interact with each other. They are absorbing even politics. Even the youngest kids can pick up on these things. And what is happening is that school is being used to socially engineer children to behave a certain way when they are older. And this is 100% a fact. This is what's happening, and that really was the primary purpose of compulsory schooling. And I have gone over that in several videos, and I'll link as many videos as I can in the description box that might help you to understand this video better in case you haven't seen those before. But as in the factory-raised children in Brave New World, I remember, again, like I mentioned in the introduction, I thought, how could it ever reach that point? How could it reach a point where people were okay with the family being completely abolished, or with even natural childbirth being completely done away with? Relationships. People need people, don't they? And I just kept thinking to myself, how could that happen? But again, it made me very unsettled, because the way that things are going in our world right now, I could definitely see this being a possibility. So how can school help to bring about a future as what Brave New World looks like? Well, first of all, what we need to understand is that since school is such a huge centerpiece of everything in society, the things that happen in school will have a domino effect, and they will start up with that first domino, and they will just keep knocking over more and more and more until you get to the point where you are here. So first of all, let's think about the aspect of there not being families in this book. Look at children today. Many children are being raised by their teachers. They are not with their families often. And in fact, a lot of children are being encouraged to think of their teachers as second parents. Unfortunately, I have even seen articles or posts written by parents who are encouraging their own children to think of their teachers as their second parents. And I think that that is a really dangerous outlook to have when it comes to school. So what has been happening is that since children spend such a large amount of time in school and such a small amount of time with their family, is that the family is being undermined. This has been happening for a really long time, but never is it more prevalent today than in just some of the things that are being introduced in schools. So one really popular curriculum that is showing up all over the country in different schools is the BLM curriculum. And that curriculum, one of the things that it teaches is that it is out to dismantle the traditional family. If you also look at the online lessons, because right now we're still in the middle of this pandemic going on, and you have some children doing completely online learning. Some kids are doing hybrid. I think a few are completely back at school. But for the most part, most school students are doing at least some of their work online at home. And what has been coming out is that there are teachers who are telling parents that they do not want them watching their lessons. And the question that you have to ask is why? In fact, there was a school that sent out a paper home to parents, and the parents were supposed to sign it saying that they were not going to watch their children's lessons. So what you see is that more and more and more, the family is being cut off, and the school is kind of trying to take a rung on the ladder higher than that of parents. School has really been the perfect support for radical feminism. It completely devalues the role of wife and mother. You know, in school, children are taught all of the time about, women in history, women scientists. And yes, these people who have made these great accomplishments, people should learn about them. But at the same time, not only is it not talking about the importance of a mother being with her children, it is almost making it look like that is a bad thing because of all of these curriculums. Even with the Common Core, this was something that was going on. The traditional family was being devalued. So as you can see, we're at the point now where the family is becoming less and less and less important, because remember, the schools are the centerpiece of society. I'm not saying that it should be that way. It absolutely shouldn't, but that's the way that it is. So now, since we have all of these kids in school all day long, you have all of these women who have been raised in schools that are encouraging them, to go out there and to have a career. It's not worth it to stay home. You can have kids, but you can also have a job. You can have it all. But what is happening is that a lot of families do not have that really solid foundation that a strong family needs. There is a rise in divorce because of this. Husbands and wives are no longer feeling like they're compatible a lot of times because they have competing dreams. They don't see each other very often. They're dealing with kids who are in school or daycare, being raised by people who are not their parents. Then their kids are coming home. They're butting heads with their children on top of their spouses. And what we can see is that there is a huge outbreak of the broken family. And not just with divorce, there is a lot of single parents. There are a lot of single parents out there now too. And I'm not saying, I know that there are situations that can't be avoided, that happens. But what is wrong with schools is that it is not discouraged to have children out of wedlock. And studies show that children who are born out of wedlock are more likely to get into gangs. They are more likely to get into trouble. They are more likely to have bad situations in school, bad grades. The list goes on and on and on. So since we see this complete breakdown of the family, like I mentioned, there is a rise in delinquents. There is a rise in violence. And what is happening is because of all of these situations going on with children everywhere. And I also have to say that just the fact that parents really don't know how to interact with their children anymore. There are people out there who are advocating for children to become wards of the state. Do you see where this is going? So again, let's mention Brave New World. They are not raised by parents. They are raised in a factory. Who owns that factory? Well, that factory is run by the government. Now here we have all of these spiraling situations coming into play, and you've got people who are now recommending that children be considered wards of the state. People like law professor James Dwyer, who said, and I'm going to read this is a direct quote from him, "The reason parent-child relationships exist is because the state confers legal parenthood." He believes that in essence, children belong to the state and not to their parents, and that the reason that parent and child relationships exist in the first place is because the state is allowing them to have that relationship. And that is a really scary outlook for anyone to have, let alone a law professor. And that really does raise a lot of red flags. Now, on top of that, you have, for example, Common Core advocates who are recommending now 3 free meals a day at school for their children, or for the school students. And again, I'm going to say that I know that there are children who are destitute and could really use those 3 free meals a day, or maybe they do have parents who are not properly taking care of them, and they could use those 3 free meals a day. But the issue with that is that instead of enabling parents by giving them free things, what we need to do is, yes, we need to give them those things, but at the same time, there should be some sort of mentorship that is to help parents to parent better, or to be able to support and provide for their families. And that is not really happening. And that is not the goal. That is not the goal of them giving the 3 free meals a day, because the same Common Core advocates who want you to give 3 free meals a day to the kids in school, they are also pushing public boarding schools, which I was actually surprised to find out a few months ago when I was researching another topic like this. I found out that there are already some free public boarding schools. And I thought to myself, wow, that is already there. That is an instance of, yes, they are in public boarding schools. Remember, public schools are government schools. So these children, there are already children who are considered wards of the state in that way. And even when the presidential primaries were going on last year, this is something that should really concern us. So right now we are in the middle of the election, and Kamala Harris, before the primaries and before Joe Biden won for the Democratic ticket, Kamala Harris, when she was campaigning, she was pressing for an extension of the school day to last 10 hours a day. So she wanted the school day to not end until 6 o'clock. Now, there are some people who will say that she only meant that for the people who want their kids to be in school that long, like people who are working. But I think that she knows, and we all know, that if the school is going to offer to take children off of their parents' hands for 10 hours a day, unfortunately, since parenting has broken down so much in this country, that a good number of parents will take advantage of that. Whether they need their kids in school until 6 or not, they will take advantage of that. Because again, the entire foundation of the family has been looked down upon so much that people just don't consider it to be important anymore. So right now we're at the point where it is more common for children to be in school than for them to be at home. And this is even without those 10-hour school days, because there are so many after school programs going on. There are breakfast programs, and then you have parents who are working. There are unfortunately a lot of latchkey kids. So yes, there are a lot of children who are in school or at daycare, depending on their age, more than they are at home. And if you think about that, the lockdown in itself has turned the schools even more into a factory than what they were before, because you've got these children in schools that now they have to do social distancing. They have to wear masks, so they cannot gauge the facial expressions of their classmates or their teachers. All they see is eyes. You've got, just the hand sanitizing stations, and you have the little circles on the playground, and kids have to stay in their circle, and they're not allowed to interact or make any kind of contact with any of their classmates. You cannot get more clinical and more factory style than that. So to me, the whole pandemic schooling that is going on right now, that is just like another push in the direction to what I see as our future of a factory style of children being raised. And it's something that really, really should trouble a lot of us. And I think it's important that we start speaking out, and we start just letting people know how important it is that they are with their children, and that it is their responsibility to be with their kids. It is no one's responsibility but theirs. Years ago, Hillary Clinton famously said, and she's not the first person to say it, but since she said it, it became famous. She said that it takes a village to raise a child. But let me assure you, she wasn't talking about extended family. She wasn't talking about friends. She wasn't talking about neighbors. When she spoke about it takes a village to raise a child, she was referring to the government. And that is exactly what this book was all about. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave it over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. Have a great day.